that's funny. I actually got a number in here. Did the dumbass actually really say 1970s is not, it is not the 1970s all over again? This dumbass really say this? Well, you're half right. You're half right, and this is not that, but the problem never was solved from the front end of it. They had a problem with inflation. What did they say? They solved it. Then what happened? If they did solve it, change in administrations, change in regimes that had a fixed play that should have been on the trajectory of moving in those things to keep them from happening, just inflated it.
Lucky for you, nothing keeps you connected like AT&T.
Pumped a little air back in it for you.
Oh yeah, it's fast. Reliable.
It didn't go away.
Secure. Oh yeah, it's secure.
I mean, firstly, again, inflation is a universal concept. You could never stop it. You can never stop gold from running out of Alaska. You can't stop feet of oil changing the prices of oil in Saudi regardless of how much there is. You can't change the fact that winter is going to cause a tax on your timelines of getting around town. You're not going to change the population force multiplying those values in any way. So, tell me how this is different from 1970 today.
Similar.
Let's hear it.
That it probably somewhere between the fears of
Me, I was
people
born in
that
'87.
we're gonna revisit those years
Imagine those
and people
days.
that say it's just
Imagine
a
my
rain out of
birth
this
was a
administration's
repression,
control. Attach any
a
merit to
depression,
the
and then
Joe
since
Biden
then,
at
a
one
couple
point
of
said,
wars, a few
Milton
recessions, and a
Friedman
depression
isn't
in our
running the
generation.
show anymore. Is
Now
what
you would think,
Biden
well, that's
had,
great.
was
The
a
older
weird
you
thing
get, the more
journalists
shit
have to
you
say
deal
about some
with,
guy who's
right?
been dead for 15 years.
That's the number you're born
that
on
was
the
his,
cyclical
because
transitory,
President Biden's
honestly.
shorthand
And
for,
think about that
you know,
whole year,
his
87.
preference
Think about
for
my
big
parents. Think
government
about where
and
they might have
sort
been living in the
come with me in
demographic.
terms of inflation.
And about the time you just start to get stabled out into it as a kid, you get hit again. There goes your raises. There goes your promotions in those unions. There goes all those things. And you start over.
We're a lot more dependent than we were last year.
Just so I could get a job. I mean, there was a huge thing where my old man retired. And the only job in town was the one he had. And now I had to start the job after these assholes inflated the system so much that what he retired on, I would probably have to fucking start at.
Inflation, it's there. The possibility, the potential.
Inflation is higher than the Fed would like it and higher than you and I would like it, but I don't think we're going to the 1970s again, in part because the United States economy is much more diversified than it was then.
Much more
We're not
diversified.
dependent
That was
on,
like, whoa,
foreign oil as we
there's
were
but
then.
one job,
So,
one flock,
we
one
are
sheep.
not as heavily
When you say
unionized as we were
diversified,
then, and
I
while
mean,
that's
it's like
not a
what?
bad
Because there's
factor in
oil,
some
there's
respects,
milk
I think
farms, there's all
unionization
these
is not a
other
bad
things that
thing.
what, pay the
I
same?
do think it does have an impact on
Minimum
inflation.
wage?
So overall, I think it's a
You know,
good
did you go
situation.
through
But
these
remember,
places
we
and
had
say, well, this,
2%
you should be
inflation for a
giving
long
your
period of
companies
time.
way
We're
more
slightly
than,
above
you
that
people
now.
way more than
I
minimum
don't
wage?
expect we're going to have
I mean, there would be an inflation to it, right? It's like, what about my security risk? What about my expansion as a company to grow? I mean, did you factor any of these expansionary numbers to really tell me the age of the universe?
I don't see that at all.
Did you separate it from field theory here as a neutrino calc that augments the feeds and speeds of Fermilab? Because they would be inflation. They would be, by definition, the same thing. Just because it's YF over X, and you're going to tell me it's some other number, they look the same on graph by black body problem. And I don't mean that to say, well, everything does. No, no, no. I mean, when you do the math, it becomes the definition of the fucking black body problem. It's in here, it's you, and it's quite diverse, honestly, because it doesn't give a fuck where you come from, what your sectors are. It will look like calculus. It's going to look like your demographic and why this motherfucker is in charge of me, right, Becky? It's like, obviously, inflation, his numbers come around, he's so good that he should be in charge of everybody. So let's whip it out. Let's see what you did. Let's obviously backtrack you with field theory and use my entire life to go through everything you did at 7th grade, because all of those things are still relative here in 2020, right? Like the school system and inflation and the tech curve didn't cause some kind of change in what these things are that's going to G-lock you right into the fucking ground when you go to explain to me, well, why was it different in your life than mine? Stay home, shut your fucking mouth, grab a lathe or a whittle, a stick and a knife so you can start fucking whittling something. I suggest you sell that at the fucking farmer's market.